Greetings. I hope y'all are doing well. For those of you that will watch this live or will join this live or rewatch the replay, I'm getting ready to do just a minor discussion with a young lady by the name of Regina McClain. She is a therapist, and I met her. Oh, here she is.
Okay,
Okay, that's a better connection.
that's much better. Yes. How
Okay,
you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm good.
So I was just telling the people that will watch the replay who you are, what you do, and how I met you. And I met you at my first workshop, Dismantle, Reimagine the Strong Black Woman. And you gave me a copy of your book. Wait, let me.
Yes.
It is entitled Brown Skin with Three Ponytails, A Journey Towards Forgiving While Never Forgetting. It is her life story from healing from various forms of trauma, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I just want to give a trigger warning very quickly for people who will watch the replay. This is a trigger warning for sexual assault, specifically rape. If you are someone that is fresh in your healing journey, if you are someone that has kept your assault a secret, this may be a little bit much for you all to endure right now. But if you do believe that you can sit through it and hear her story as well as how she overcame, feel free to do so. If you all have any questions or concerns, you can DM us both or comment on the live. So you want to give us a brief summary of who you are and what you do so people can have some type of background information, some context?
Okay, so my name again is Regina McClain, and I'm the author. My author name is Promises McClain. I'm a master's level clinician. I have my own private practice. It's a virtual private practice. It's called McClain Total Wellness. I've been in social work and doing clinical psychotherapy for over 25 years, I would say. Yeah, because I also have a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's degree in social work. So
Busy.
that's
Okay. So I reread chapter 16, which talks about your incident, your assault of rape. Do you I would rather you give like context of that situation rather than me doing it because it is your story.
So you would go right. Well, you did tell me it was going to go right for that situation. So I was 16 years old, and an interesting thing about that situation is that, I didn't think I was attractive. I was super, super tall. Well, I am, excuse me. I didn't shrink. But I was really, really tall. And this guy, we were like kind of secretly getting together in a corner of the school. And so we would just basically kiss and different things like that. And, and then I got to the point where I guess I must have got a little of self-esteem because he was like a big superstar on the basketball team at my high school. And I didn't want to be a secret anymore. So I was kind of like going there to kind of call it off.
Right.
And one thing led to another, and he assaulted me.
Right.
Sexually, he raped me. I never said that publicly.
You haven't? I didn't know that, Regina. I didn't know that.
I mean, like, I'm okay. I'm just saying, like, I know that this is the internet, so it's kind of like, I talk about it, I'll talk about it like to you or, to an end of one-on-one and different things like that, not going to therapy. But, when you talk about a platform as big as this, it's a little bit, it's a lot more than that,
You want to stop?
No.
I'm
okay. No, I told you that if I, because the situation did happen to me, like the story is a true story. I told you in our prior conversation, if I get upset I'm okay. Because I've gone to therapy and I've talked about it, but it's still there. I mean, it's something that happened that, I don't have a problem with ask you. It's okay. It's okay for me to crying for me or having an emotion for me is all a part of my journey of healing, but I'm okay.
Okay. So I have a framework that I use to help Black women or strong Black women to heal, and it includes 5 steps. I talk about agency, lament. I talk about the audacity to recover. I talk about healing, and I talk about resistance. Right. But as in a workshop, it's a yearly cohort, but we move by quarters, and the first quarter has focused on agency. And I define agency as the power and influence of our collective experiences, right? And that power and influence, it creates our posture, it creates the tenacity of our voice or our voice in general. It creates or motivates our decisions. It encourages how we move, right? But at 16, do you think that at 16, did you have agency? And if you did, how did being raped change your agency or diminish it?
Can you tell me what agency is one time again? Because you.
Oh, I said it fast, my bad. It's the power and influence of your collective experiences.
Okay. So I don't know. I think well, first of all, the significance of the chapter is called When I Was 16. I was a virgin.
Right.
So I really didn't even know that I had been violated. I thought it didn't feel right, but I wasn't sure because I just thought that, number one, I wasn't supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think anybody would believe me. So how I found agency is when I went to school and they went through the rape cycle and I started remembering the feelings that I felt, the dirtiness, and it just just the more information that I received on rape, I realized that I was right, that I was a victim.
Right.
And so I was in class and I just felt like it was like the more that they talked about it, it just sent chills, and it was very overwhelming.
Right.
But then again, I started seeking help and start talking about it a little bit more to different people.
Okay.
I'm encouraged by the Me Too movement,
Right.
I must say. And I know before you had asked me about shame. I still don't feel comfortable saying his name.
Right.
I mean, I've told him.
Right.
We had a conversation about it. I actually told him I read the chapter to him.
Oh, word? What was his response?
If you put my name in that book, I'll sue you. And I told him that I've already talked to an attorney, and I said the only defense to a lie is the truth.
Mm-hmm. So you gather agency, you gather power and influence to overcome your assault by being educated about rape culture.
Yes.
Okay. So it's in chapter 16, you said it 3 times, I think. You said it was my fault. No one is going to believe me, and that you shouldn't have been there. Right? You shouldn't have been in the stairwell. So how long did it take you? Did education around rape culture help you to understand that regardless of where you were or where you were not, that it wasn't your fault?
Well, there's so much shame.
Yeah.
I mean, it even after learning that the feelings that I felt during, after having been assaulted, and I did tell a few people, but their reaction wasn't enough to make me believe that what had happened to me was real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in other words, it didn't make me believe that I was violated. It made me feel like maybe there was something, because maybe people didn't, I told them exactly what happened, and their response was like, okay. And I'm like, okay, so there's no response. So now if I had to go to the police department or something, I started playing through in my mind if I would do this. I could not handle emotionally, and I guess maybe still to this day, emotionally, since and now we have society where people are going back 30 and 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
for things and violations. I just don't feel comfortable with anyone telling me about what happened to me, that it's not true.
Right, but how did you overcome the notion that it was your fault?
Pretty much from going to school
Okay,
again,
education.
and again learning that cycle,
Okay.
and remembering the feelings that I felt, and then also therapy. I've gone to therapy myself to heal. I've also worked with survivors.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked which is one of the inspirations for me even writing the book, is I worked in the jail as a therapist for little girls, and I could tell by a lot of their stories that they too were violated, but did not realize that they were violated. It didn't feel right, but I was really, in session and in session and in assessment. You can tell that it didn't feel right and that something was wrong, but they still felt like they contributed to the violation
Mm-hmm.
just by being there, just by not being in the right place at the quote right time, or dressed, a certain dress, a certain kind of way. Just the first thing that you think about is, what did I do? And so that is one of the things that I noted in the reason, and is the reason why I wrote my book.
Right. So you tried to help these young girls diminish as many excuses as possible that they gave themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
But why? Okay, I understand that our society encourages that, but it's like I don't. I want. I know it's no specific thing, right? But so many women, we gather so many excuses because what is it that we don't want to feel that we've been assaulted, or we're trying to protect our assaulter, or what encourages women to actually do that? Or this is what I deserve because I'm a woman. This is what happens to women. This is the norm. So I might as well just toss it over my shoulder and just keep it moving. For women who are struggling to identify that they have been sexually assaulted and they can't afford therapy, what suggestions would you give them to come to realization like this happened to me and there's no excuse for it?
Well, definitely psychotherapy, which is basically talk therapy. Um, you gotta, it's like, you gotta talk about it. And you have to talk about it in safe spaces.
Yeah, okay.
That's the other thing.
Well, can you define the
That's
safe
huge.
space? How do you define the safe space?
Friends, really just friends that, I majored in social work, so we were all being trained as to be clinicians. I spent a lot of time in undergrad, because this was undergrad that I realized that I actually, and I wrote about it. Actually, that chapter came from a letter that I wrote to my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
I was away at college, and because I had to be like, I was 16, so I was about in 11th, almost 10th, 11th grade, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote her. It was tears. I was drawing tears all over the paper. I found this letter while I was an adult, yes, but I still kept that letter. So I had to go back and just kind of piece it together, but I never mailed it.
Mm-hmm.
I never mailed it.
So you can write letters, right, to actually get it out, to put it on paper so that you can actually understand that this did happen. But in your experience when you were 16, you told other people and they didn't make it a big deal. What if people we consider friends don't make it a big deal either? And what if we have friends that, are secretly hiding their assault and they don't know how to help us? Like,
Well, you don't always know. Your experience could be triggering to the other person.
Right.
That can be a response to the startled effect when you say, well, hey, this happened to me. So you can't always take everything personal when these type of situations happen. And like I said, and I emphasize a lot is therapy, but finding friends that believed me,
Yeah.
because it's people who have read that chapter, well, read my book in general. People often say to me, Gina, I feel like I'm in the room with you.
Right.
I feel like I'm there. It's like, so I tried to get in as much detail as I possibly could. And the significance of it, even I've worked for DFACS in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been in the room when kids talk about it's the detail in the report of the violation that makes you know that it's real. The blood, because I was a virgin, and even when me and the person who assaulted me, um, he in his whole big denial, he was telling me that, every woman that he's had experience with really enjoyed it. And I was just like, so then if you know that me and you had this situation, what was my experience? I mean, who would want to have a first time experience on the floor in the hallway of a stairwell in a school where anyone could just walk in? Like, that's not what you see in the movies, kind of thing,
Right.
So, um, or in your head or your imagination of what your first time would be like.
Right.
And so, it was just I felt like instantly, though, after we had that conversation, all of the stress and anxiety that I had about talking about that situation, it's like I gave it to him.
Oh,
It
I
was
bet.
it was a transference.
Yes. Okay.
I warned him also, if he has, if he had a daughter, because you think about generational curses, a granddaughter, you have to do right by people, so that's all I said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think you gave his. I don't want to use this term, and I don't mean to say this insultly. Like I feel like you gave. I feel like you gave his stuff back to him. Right. He took
Yes,
something from.
ma'am.
Yeah. So I wanted to say something, but
Did
you
you
gave.
feel that way when you read that chapter? Oh, you didn't. Oh, you don't know about.
I didn't know
Yes,
about the
I'm
conversation.
sorry.
I didn't know about the conversation. I'm just not learning that you actually caught. You had a conversation with him in your adulthood, right? I know a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
people. I know a lot of people don't get that chance to actually um, address their assaulter, right? Some people just celebrate when they die, right? And that's real. I know someone, and I'm not going to tell her story because it's not my story to tell. But when her assaulter transitioned, she celebrated, right? And I really can't blame her for that. I can't say it's wrong. I can't say it's right because that is how she found relief, right? That's how she knew she was safe again. You know what I'm saying? And I
Hmm.
think that when you talk to him, you actually gave him his stuff back because that's not what you asked for. Like it was robbery. But how did you recover knowing that your virginity was taken away from you? How did you recover? Like, how did it affect your sexuality? I know a lot of women, they feel they really don't have sexual liberation because of sexual trauma from childhood or even in adulthood. Like, so how did you recover? How did you take back your body? You know?
Um, well, that too was a journey, because I understand that not all men are
Rapists. Yeah.
abusers.
Yeah.
You know, I have to, in my head, I have to believe that there has to be someone that you can trust. There has to be, um, and usually if I have a relationship with a person, I will tell them about that situation. You know, I would have told the person if I was in a relationship with with a person. Um, because I'm kind of like a person, I like to be handled with care type
Right,
of
of
thing.
course.
And then also I I just I'm okay. It's been a process. It's been many years, of course. And even that conversation that I had with him again was because of social media. We graduated from the same high school. We're kind of from a small town in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
And so we have common friends. So he reached out to me. So I was like, "Oh, I got something to read to you." And I read the chapter to him. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of the release was just me telling, and that is a blessing,
So you
for me to tell him personally.
right, so you reclaimed your body in the moment in which you told him.
Yes, ma'am. Oh my God. It was like just a complete release. And I warned him about, again, generational curses, and that the violation was significant. So,
Right. Well, I don't want to get into like generational curses because it's like I get what you're saying, right? I totally get what you're saying, but I really can't. I know you're not looking for me to, but I really can't comment on that because I'm a little iffy about uh generational curses. So let's hope that, we don't know his heart. Maybe he has repented. Maybe he hasn't come to an understanding of what he did. Maybe he hasn't. Right. But I always try to. Okay, let me ask you this before I go there. How did you feel about the situation with Kobe and people bringing up his alleged sexual assault, and then people also discussing his legacy, like his basketball legacy, his mental legacy? How did you feel about that coming back up?
well, I understood the victim, based off of the information that was presented.
Yeah.
The victim I wasn't there, number one,
Right.
but her story, it didn't come across, or she didn't, I don't know. I don't really have a major comment on that.
No. So let me
Um, I,
let me be
I
more
don't, I
specific.
don't, as far as them bringing it up, I thought it was very extremely inappropriate and insensitive, definitely.
So
And again, I'm totally a big supporter of the Me Too movement. Um, but I just thought that was really insensitive,
right.
because because that particular girl did speak. I didn't speak.
Right.
And I don't want to say his name. I don't want to be involved with that whole situation. I don't want to do that.
Right. So I think I should have been more specific. So um people and they're dealing with assaulters. Right? I've forgiven both of my assaulters of sexual assault, right? I've gotten to the point where I could actually pray that they feel convicted about what they've done and they can actually change their actions, right? That's the point I've gotten to. A lot of people don't get to that point. A lot of people don't know, people who have been sexually assaulted don't know how to get to that point, right? And some of them are just simply not interested in getting to that point because probably they're still dealing with the trauma or they just don't want to, right? And I think both is fair, right? But the reason I brought up that incident with Kobe is because I think that narratives need to be balanced, right? And the reason I say that is I think that when survivors of a sexual assault get to a point of some type of wholeness, right? After their assault, and they begin to pray, not just they just get to a point of saying, okay, well, I hope my assaulter has changed, right? They try to think the better of the assaulter. I'm not saying that women should do this or men should do this right now, especially if they're beginning of their healing journey, especially if they haven't admitted that they have been sexually assaulted, especially if they still having nightmares, they're still locking their door at night, if they still are experiencing trauma. I'm not telling people to pray for their assaulters at all. I just want to be clear, right? But the reason I bring the whole thing up and I talk about balanced narratives, if you made a phone call to him and you gave him back all of his stuff and you recovered your body and you felt some type of release, where are you in your point now with forgiving him, or have you not done that, or are you not interested in doing so?
I think that I've forgiven him, but that's a part of my story. So I feel free to be able to say whatever. If I want to talk about it, I will. Um, I I forgive him. I mean, but it wasn't as if he said he was sorry. Well, actually, he did say he was sorry, but he
Oh,
was
he did.
saying he was sorry if, those sorry if. I'm sorry if you felt like this happened. I'm sorry. So it's like, that's why I said a journey towards forgiving while never forgetting. A lot of times people don't feel comfortable about talking about something that happened, and if you're the perpetrator, you really don't feel comfortable with talking about what happened. You know, so he did say sorry if, and I
Mhm.
just was like, that's his apology. That's going to be his journey. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I mean, as far as he's concerned, did I forgive him? Yes, I did forgive him.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
did
it's
forgive him, but it still happened.
yeah, I don't think it's your responsibility to worry about his work. Like that's his work to work through that to understand what he did was sexual assault. Like I wasn't trying to imply that that's your work if that came off like that.
No, you was just saying, did I forgive him?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I don't, I mean, I had to move on with my life. I'm not gonna, I feel like I'm not gonna give a person who has violated me the rest of my life. So I rather go to therapy or, talk to somebody to get it out, talk about it in a safe space with a safe person so that I can heal, regardless of whether or not the person comes and says, oh, I just want to tell you I'm sorry and I acknowledge what I did was wrong. And if I'm not mistaken, I do remember the video as far as Kobe is concerned, where he acknowledged that, he's apologized,
Right.
you know. So I'm not saying that that makes it right. And boom, I'm not
Right.
saying
Right.
all of that, but I'm just saying that that wasn't my experience. And, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what happened to me. So I have the right to speak and say what has happened. It's a part of my life, a history. It's my herstory,
Right.
her story.
Okay, girl. I want to talk about one more thing. When you was walking after the assault, I don't know if it was the next day, a couple of days after, you was walking across the street in downtown, and he walked up to you and he said, "Hey, are you all right?" Like, can you talk about how much what was the impact of that question?
It was breathtaking. It was a breathtaking experience because I just felt, well, a breathtaking statement, because I was just like, how could you ask me if I'm all right? Because at that point in time, I wasn't sure if I was pregnant. I had never had sex before, so I didn't know what to expect. Or, so I didn't know, are you all right is a really hard question to ask a person after that type of situation. And I did tell him that I was a virgin, I was a virgin,
Right,
so I don't know. It was re-traumatizing.
right, right. Okay. And it was extremely insulting, obviously, right?
Huh? Say one more
I said,
time.
and it was extremely insulting, right?
Insulting, insensitive.
Degrading.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to get away from him really quickly. That's all.
Um, what advice could you give to strong Black women that are still living in secrecy about their assault? Outside of talking to, because like a strong Black woman, we put on masks to cover up things, right? When a strong Black woman is in her safe space, whether it is taking a bath every night, whether it's in her what the powder room, isn't that what y'all call it when y'all go put on makeup, like a powder room, or she's in her closet, how would you what would you say to her to encourage her to lift her mask and to tend to that wound of the assault? Maybe she doesn't have anybody to talk to. Maybe she doesn't understand what a safe space is. But as someone that has endured it and you also have recovered from being a strong Black woman, what encouragement would you give her?
One of the things that I noted in my experience with working with women who are Black, especially little girls, Black women who little girls who come into become the strong Black woman, I noticed that they don't cry.
Okay.
You know, that they just, it's almost like we got to be so, ugh, that's that strong Black woman. You don't want to let that tear fall. You know, like once you let the tear fall, it's like you're very vulnerable. And that's where I go back to like the whole safe spaces. I really, you know, there has been times in my life where, you know, especially when I was writing that book, I did things that I never did before. Like I fell asleep in the tub. You know, I had candles all around. I literally fell asleep, and what woke me up was the water got cold. And I woke up, I'm like, oh my goodness. I just learned how to do things that were more relaxing as I was purging and working through that situation. Journaling, my book is actually a whole bunch of my journals. I'm a journaler.
Right.
So even if there's not a safe space at different points in time, a pen and a piece of paper is a very safe space, you know. And the my book is a compilation of journals that I have had all throughout the house, even calendars. You know, I would write certain things in calendars. So I've been a big journaler because I've been a big reader all my life. So I just love writing. And so that was a huge outlet for me, to get it out, to write and let that pen be my voice.
All right, so what I hear you saying is that for strong Black women that are covering up their wound of assault, don't be afraid.
In religious counsel and different things like that, because those experiences can really mess with your faith, you
Yeah,
know. And it took a toll, because you start wondering why you were even brought to this earth. Were you brought to this earth to be like abused or a victim? You know, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be a victim, especially I'm alive. You know,
right.
I always told my tell my clients that the only victims die, survivors live, and I wanted to be on the side of survivor.
Mhm.
I mean, just talking about something that happened to you should not then automatically make you, quote, a victim. You know, it takes a lot to just get it out and to be healed and to walk in your healing.
Right. And let me just make this disclaimer. For people who have unhealthy relationships with ecclesial institution or churches in general, that you may have a bad relationship with God because you know people in your family have been assaulted and no justice was given. Then you have been assaulted and no justice was given, and you feel like God has forsaken you, or people or theologies that have taught you like you brought this on yourself. Um, I acknowledge all of that. And however you choose to, if you choose to, because many of you may not choose to because of how you see God, how you think about God, and this is based on everything that you've been taught and what you have endured as well. I understand how bad theology can diminish your faith, right? So I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. I do acknowledge how that happens, and a lot of people get assaulted in the church, and they tell the pastor, they tell the deacon, they tell other people that's in charge, and nothing still gets done. So this notion of God being your protector, God being your provider, it all diminishes. And I understand that struggle. And if you are somebody that is struggling with that, like DM me and let's work through it. Because I do think that if that is the place where you are, God did. just DM me so we can get through it. I don't want to categorize you. I don't want to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, but I do acknowledge that the church has contributed to sexual assault. So the church may not be a safe place. I know you may not feel like praying. I know you may not even want to talk to God or trust God based off your experience and what you've been taught in the church. And I honor that. And I see you and I'm acknowledging you. But if you have any questions about it, of how you can get from that into another place, DM me and we can talk about it. But I have to make that acknowledgement because the church contributes too much to that type of abuse. So yeah. Regina, you want to talk about anything else, or you want to say anything else? I pinned the title of your book at the bottom. You all can DM or follow Regina on her IG page if you all are interested in her services. Please email or DM her if you're ready to start your healing journey. If you're not afraid of therapy, if you're reconciling your thoughts around therapy, I trust Regina, and I do suggest that you all DM her and contact her for her services. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we
I just wanted to say that the book is available on Amazon, and it's $10. It's available electronically, so you can, if you purchase it, you can get it on your cell phone and read it on your cell phone. There's also a paperback available, like I said, on Amazon.
Okay, cool. All right, that's it.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to be going through Regina's book for the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be talking about different subjects as it relates to trauma. It won't be all sexual assault. And we hope that this has benefited you all. If you all have any questions, you can feel free to DM both of us. If you have any topics that you want Regina and I to discuss, you can also DM us. We're here to serve you as healers, and she is a healer because she is a therapist. She does healing work. We are people who are service-based, right? So whatever it is your needs are, whatever you're curious about, let us know. We could put together something to make it happen for you all. So thank you, Regina, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.
All right. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'll see you later.
All right. Good night.
Bye.